Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Cuz You Don't Know Football. Today we got a special guest today. We're going through some of these drafts. I'm gonna explain why we're gonna go through this draft. We got your boy Mooch. This is why this episode was created. So I'm creating this whole thing because of conversations that I had. He's gonna know all about it exactly when he gets on. Mooch, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, we in there. What's going on, brother? How you feeling out there?
Feeling good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Okay. So first of all, it's not about things having you on. This topic we're talking about is specifically tailored for you. This is like the mooch episode. You see what I'm saying? This is like if I didn't talk to you and we didn't talk how we talked, I'd be like, I may not even be thinking about this. But this we had to talk about. So
Mm.
let me give people a little bit of context. So I'm not a person that does mock drafts. Actually, I've talked in the last episode expansively on that on why I don't like mock drafts. But what I do like is looking at data, looking at prospects and seeing how they came into the league and see how they're affecting stuff because we got real data to back stuff like that up. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that with you today. So this series is going to be your series with me. So today we're going to talk about the NFC, and we'll try next week to get the AFC. But if we have to do it the week after that, that's fine too. But just to give some context to the people on why this is happening, or what this is about, or what points that I'm using to go off of. So when I look at draft picks, years later, by year three, you kind of can see if it was good or not. I look at draft picks and I say, all right, I not only think you can see it by year three, I also can see how the roster is constructed by how well a team does in draft. That's my opinion. So I look at draft picks and say, did they draft starters? Is he on the team? Is he even in the NFL? Was this person a generational talent? Was he a bust? Things like that. So we're going to dive in and look at specifically the drafts in the 2022 NFL draft. We're going to do it in alphabetical order. Now, if it's something you want to say, because I know it's something that you want to say here, because you don't all the way get this conversation, and I'd rather you say it.
Yeah, no, I think this is an interesting idea and an interesting approach to how an interesting look at how teams build themselves to like look at a whole draft class. I agree that 3 years out is a good amount of time because this is actually for this draft class, the 2022 draft class. The teams are deciding whether to put the fifth year options on the
Mhm.
player. So like for the Eagles, I know that it was a big question as to whether to give Jordan Davis the fifth year option
Mhm.
or not. And so that's really a decision point for teams in a very public one that shows you what they're thinking and how they value that player.
Mhm.
Now, I'm going to let you. Obviously, it's your podcast, but I'm going to let you drive this car because as you were explaining how you were trying to accomplish these particular episodes, it
Mhm.
wasn't clear to me how this was going to come off. So you lead the way, young brother. I'm
Okay.
here to set picks and get assists and get you buckets.
Okay. I understand. I like buckets. You see what I'm saying? I like buckets. Okay, cool. So we're gonna do this just in alphabetical order. Now, of course, if y'all don't know, if y'all may not know my brother, but he overachieved for this. But I'm only going to shout out the top three picks, and if they happen to have somebody who was a surprise pick later on in the draft. So we're going to
Yes.
start off with the Arizona Cardinals. All right, they did not have a first round pick this year in 2022, but they had Trey McBride. They drafted Cameron Thomas, who was a defensive end, and Majay Sanders, defensive end. So, what do you feel about the 2022 draft for the Cardinals?
So real quick, in doing this, I thought about it in terms of whether the draft class was like to say that the team got above value for their picks
Hmm.
would be like a score of one. They got basically value for their picks.
Hmm.
Score of two, undervalue for the pick, score 3, and just a bad draft, score 4, right?
Okay.
So for Arizona, I gave them a 2 because while Trey McBride, I think it was their second round pick, as you said, they didn't have a first round pick. I think he's a really they got above value for that pick, but I don't know that most of their other picks. I don't even know if they're still on the team. They might have already moved on to other teams. I'm not sure. I haven't really heard much about production from Cameron Thomas or Myjai Sanders or Keontae Ingram, any of these guys. I haven't really heard much about them. And like I looked at some of the later round picks for all these teams because a lot of times there's the diamonds in the rough, and you get value there. Like that's really good. I didn't see they got value in any of those later round picks, those 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks. So I gave them a 2, like basically slightly below sort of the equator line, the Mendoza line, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I think this was a good draft for them. Not terrible, but not good.
Yeah, so of course with Trey McBride, yes, that was definitely their best pick. They did exactly what they're supposed to do. And by the way, with your top 2 picks, that's what you're supposed to get. You're supposed to at least walk away with a starter. But of course, that first round pick, you kind of want that person to be more of a difference maker. So walking away with a starter in that, I think that sets the tone for the whole draft, and it makes it easier for the rest of the draft. Now, 1 or 2 of them of the other picks are rotational players, but nobody else in this draft is a starter. So, ironically, though, I think so. As soon as we do this next year, there's going to be a quantum difference in what I'm going to say about their draft classes because I think they drafted so much better the last 2 years, and I think that's going to show for them. But as of this draft class, I mean, they got a starter. They got their tight end. I think a tight end is a very big position.
Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So moving on, we're going to do the Atlanta Falcons. Of course, their first pick was Drake London. Their second round pick was Arnold Ebiketie. And yeah. And then they had another second round pick, which was Troy Anderson. And their third round pick was Desmond Ritter was their third round pick, and also D'Angelo Malone, outside linebacker. What do you think?
So I gave this one a 3. Drake London, while he may not be directly as good as maybe people thought he would be coming out, I think given all the quarterback uncertainty in Atlanta the last few years, I think he's performed very well, actually. I think Arnold Ebiketie, was it again? Ebiketie. Sorry about that. I think he's a good rotational player. I think he's had quite a few starts, but he's not always starting, and he might be more situational than not. But as a second round pick, I think that's fine. He has some production. Haven't heard much about Troy Anderson. We know that Desmond Ritter is no longer on the team. So I would say that that's not good. So a player 3 years later who's not on the team anymore, I'm not. And as a third round pick, I'm not really. That's not impressive. I do want to shout out, however, Tyler Algier, who was their 5th round pick. They've gotten a lot of production out of him. I would give them high marks for that draft pick. Getting a player who has produced at the level that he has in the 5th round. I like that a lot. So I gave this draft a score of 3, which is a good based on the strength of the Drake London picks and the Tyler Algier pick.
Right. So the Falcons drafts have always been up and down. I don't know, like if we had started this a year earlier, I would have had Kyle Pitts on there, and I would have been like, yeah, don't draft this, and it would have been an archetype for. I could go on and on about why you don't draft that kind of tight end. We'll keep going on that though. Drake London, listen, you got a number 1 wide receiver. You know what I mean, and that's exactly what he was supposed to do. I don't mind the Desmond Ritter, even him not being on the team, because hey, listen, you got to try quarterback at some place. Quarterbacks don't always have to be top 5 picks or anything like that. So giving somebody opportunity at the 3rd round pick at quarterback and that doesn't work out, all right, you tried to get your quarterback. You know what I mean? You wasn't even a backup, but I'm cool with that. But Tyler Algier absolutely is a big part of their two-headed running monster. Um,
If I remember correctly, this was the draft where there were no quarterbacks in this draft. Basically, I think this was the one where Pickett was drafted at 21 by the Steelers, and then there wasn't another quarterback maybe until Desmond Ritter was drafted. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Okay.
This is
Yeah.
the matter of fact, I can tell you that in 2 seconds. Yep, this is the Kenny Pickett draft.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, so yes, so it's not a lot of draft, but in just in terms of a draft strategy, because this is something that me and you have talked about a little more extensively. Listen, man, like I'm cool. I'm cool with drafting a project. Desmond Ritter was probably he wasn't an NFL quarterback or not anybody you really need to see. That's fine. I'm not mad at that. Now, their strategy, the Falcons' strategy of drafting, I think does show up on their team, and I think it's actually a little bit more below average because they've underachieved as a roster. When I look at them, like the last 2 years, I was like, oh, they're probably going to win the NFC South. Both years they didn't. Um, I think that has a
Yeah.
lot to do with the highs and lows that on their roster and guys where you thinking guys are better than they actually are.
Yeah, I agree with that. I guess the one quibble with the Desmond Ritter pick was that it was in the third round. You tend to find players who can stick around in your roster longer than he did in the third round. This was a weird quarterback draft, and they were looking for a quarterback. So I in some ways, I understand it. But maybe they could have found that long lost defensive end or some edge pass rusher that they've been looking for, since the early 2000s or whenever the last time they had somebody who had double digit sacks. So, not a terrible pick there, but they could have found somebody who could actually fill out the roster a little bit with a little bit more certainty.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, we're going to stay in the NFC South, and we're going to go over to the Carolina Panthers. Their first pick
Yeah,
is Ikem.
Icum,
Say it again.
Icum Iquanu.
Ikem Ikwanu. Thank you. These names, boy, I tell you. I think back to that Key and Peele episode when he was a substitute teacher. These names, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you, it's hard. It's
Yeah,
hard. Um,
Key and Peele come back to me a lot, and it's almost they're almost like onion articles where it's like that actually is real life now. So,
yes,
yeah, I
yes,
get
yes.
it.
I hate to be a teacher nowadays. Third round they got Matt Corral, quarterback. And then fourth round they got Brandon Smith, but they didn't have too many picks this draft. What do you think? What are you thinking about the Carolina Panthers?
Yeah, I decided not to knock teams in this exercise for not having a lot of picks.
Mm-hmm.
That should matter because the players who they received for the picks that they don't have should have also, in my mind, be counted as part of this draft. But it was too much to try to track down, so I didn't
Mm-hmm.
focus on that. I gave them a 2, and I feel like I was being pretty generous by giving them a 2
Mm-hmm.
because there's still some I guess some promise with Ike Mikwanu, but he has not
He's a
performed
starter.
to the
He's a
level.
starter.
He is a starter, but they didn't I believe they did not they declined the 5th-year option for him.
Mm-hmm.
So like that tells you what they think of him right now, even with him being a starter. The team has generally struggled to fill out the offensive line for a number of years now. Icum Aquano did not really help. I know he's starting, but he's not really. He's kind of like Joe Tooney starting in the Super Bowl for the Chiefs. He might not be it. Same situation with Matt Corral as I had with Atlanta and Desmond Ritter. Third round, you really want you can find somebody who can fill out the roster a little bit more, even if they're situational and not a complete starter. Matt Corral, obviously this is a not good draft class for quarterbacks, but he's also not on the roster anymore. And I don't know much about the rest of the. I haven't heard much about the rest of the guys. I think Brandon Smith is in the league, but not on the team anymore.
Right.
So yeah, I gave him a 2, and I think that's generous.
Yeah, I don't think any of the players that they drafted this draft are still either on this team or
Okay.
in the league, except for that pick. No, I think this is bad, and I think this is exactly what you see from the Carolina Panthers, and this is exactly why it's hard to look at Bryce Young and say this is like evaluate him as an NFL quarterback, because they weren't drafting well before he got there, and we're seeing their ability to kind of switch that. Um, I think looking back at him last year, I think he raised his game, which is a beautiful thing to watch when you're able to look at what's not on this roster and the fact that they were able to he was able to do anything with it. You know what I mean? That's what I really felt like this roster lacked a lot. and
Yeah, I agree.
but yeah, so but I think they've made some corrections for coming into this year. I think they'll be an interesting team, but I think they still are. They're farther away. It's hard to say if they'll even compete in this division, but they're farther away than anything respectable in my eyes because they're still getting better on things that they were bad at in the past.
Yeah, and if you look at the first round, it makes the Ike Kwanu pick even worse because maybe 2 picks later, Drake London is selected. A better offensive lineman in Charles Cross is selected. Garrett Wilson is selected. Chris Olave, who's been hurt, was selected. Like they missed out on players. I don't want to blame them for not selecting Kyle Hamilton because who's going to select him at 6 at that point in time? I don't think anybody's really thinking about drafting safeties that high.
Mhm.
But there are just players that they missed out on. So that's also a ding against
Yeah,
the team manager.
yeah. So I can definitely hold the fact that a better tackle was taken after that against the general manager, but taking a left tackle and that high in the draft, I think that's one of the positions that you draft higher than everybody else.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that's one of the positions. So I can hold that against them.
And they were definitely they were trying to fill a need at left tackle. And
Mhm.
coming into the draft, it was like Ike Kwanu was almost like an athletic freak at the position. So he was supposed to pan out. He hasn't panned out, at least as of yet.
But they might walk away from this draft having nobody on the roster.
Right, exactly. By the end of next year, and this time next season, there might not be anybody on this roster.
All right, cool. So we're now gonna go over to the Chicago Bears. They did not have a first round pick this year in
Yeah.
2022. Their second round pick was cornerback Kyler Gordon out of Washington, and then they also had another second round pick, Jaquan Brisker, the safety,
Yep.
and then Velus Jones was their wide receiver in the third round. And I didn't really see anybody there's no real standouts outside of that. So Chicago Bears 2022 draft.
I thought it was pretty solid. I gave him a 2. So Kyler Gordon was re-signed recently by the team. So I think he's like their nickel cornerback, but he's a good one. He's been playing very well. And they re-signed him. So that's a positive sign for him. I think Jaquan Brisker has been injured quite a bit, but has been when he's played, he's been a very good safety. He's performed very well. Velus Jones was not a good pick, even in the moment. I understand it's the third round, but he was a return guy only in college, basically, and he was 24 years old coming out, so there wasn't much upside there in that pick. But I also want to give them props for drafting Braxton Jones, who is their starting left tackle, and he was a 5th round pick. So I gave them a 2.
Now I will tell you, I do love it when one of the things I love about GMs, and I'm not gonna go into it because he's not in this episode, but the one thing that why I'm not tired of like Chris Ballard as the Indianapolis Colts GM, is because he could pick a late round offensive lineman, and that is so helpful. When you can pick that guy out, offensive lineman that's going to be a starter late in rounds, you have no idea what that takes off your plate.
Yep. Sure.
I always feel like the Chicago Bears, they're good at drafting. They have not drafted a difference maker in a very long time. But their drafts usually check the boxes. So of this draft, they have multiple starters still on there, like Jaquan Brisker and the cornerback
Kyler Gordon.
Kyle Gordon still there. You know what I mean? They got players that always come in and they're starters and they're really good contributors. I'm looking for them, but they do very well in free agency in terms of trying to get those difference makers.
Yeah.
So I guess that's filling it in. So draft strategy, that's why we had high hopes for them last year.
Yeah, for sure. I think at least this draft was a good one. It's overall what's his name? Ryan Poles, the GM. I have a very mixed opinion of him and his team building style, but good times might be ahead with the new head coach and maybe second year of the quarterback. He might take some steps, so we'll see.
Okay. All right, so we're moving on to your favorite team, Dallas Cowboys. No. um, but no, we are moving on to the Dallas Cowboys.
Yep. Amen.
So I'm sure you're about to rip them. So Dallas this year, with their first round pick, they had Tyler Smith, offensive tackle. In their second round, they picked Sam Williams, the outside linebacker. And in the third round, they selected wide receiver Jalen Tolbert. They got Jake Ferguson in the fourth round. DaRon Bland is somebody who they got in the fifth round. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all their stars. But what did you think about this draft?
Yeah, I mean the Cowboys always draft well. It's their free agency approach and their approach to re-signing their players that's left to be desired. But they're a good drafting team. So I gave them a 2. Tyler Smith is at least value, if not above value, in terms of being a starting tackle on their team and being playing well. Sam Williams has just been hurt. I think basically his entire NFL career. He was a bit of a reach, if I remember correctly, in the draft. So it may not have panned out anyway, but he's been hurt. And Jalen Tolbert hasn't really come through the way they would have liked. He's a third round pick, so him still being on the roster and him still being a contributor on the team, I think is a good thing for him. But he's not going to be the guy, the deep threat that they were trying to get out of him when they drafted him and thought that he would replace Gallup. But drafting Jake Ferguson and drafting Bland in the fifth round, I think are above value in terms of what they got at those spots. So I gave them a 2.
Yes. Dallas to me is one of the best drafting teams. I'm not saying they're the best, but they're definitely one of the best drafting teams. The problem with Dallas is never, to me, the talent. And I think that's the enigma with Dallas and the funny thing about them. It's not the talent. I just feel like they have a philosophical problem. And that problem, I don't know if you can fix that in the draft because you've got to understand what you have and what you don't have. So what I mean by that is I think Dak Prescott is a good quarterback. I don't think he's great, and I think his best years always were when he had a running game to like take off a lot of his workload. And I think the moves that they always make is, all right, well, we get Kenny Pickett this year, we do stuff, and they never really draft like running backs to, you know what I mean, just to take it. I really feel like they could be in the playoffs this year. They're not because they're going to pass the ball too much, but they could be in the playoffs this year by simply saying, oh, with all this talented team, all we got to do is run the ball. So it's hard to look at them in the draft because they do so well all the time. But they just make the wrong roster decisions.
Yeah, and I think like I was saying, like I think their problem is they don't know, to your point of like you got to know what you have and what you don't have. They wait too long to re-sign the players that they do have that are good. So like the reason why Dak Prescott got 60 million isn't because Dak Prescott would get 60 million in the open market. It's because the Cowboys allowed Dak Prescott to back them into a corner in terms of his contract because they already franchised them once, which when they went at a time when they shouldn't have, which meant that if they would franchise them again when his contract was up, it would be like whatever the number would be, some astronomical number because he's a quarterback. And so that meant that they had to, when they had to actually sign into a long-term contract, and that long-term contract was just so expensive because they had no other choice. Same thing with CeeDee Lamb. They waited too long to re-sign CeeDee Lamb, and they could have signed him for $6 million less the year before, but because they waited, they got to pay more. They're doing the same thing with Michael Parsons now. They don't have that part of team management down.
They
at
can't
all.
see
the drafting part.
They can't project who's doing great right now into the future.
Right, or it's like they're trying to wait and see if CeeDee Lamb is going to get hurt, or if Michael Parsons has a down year, so that means they don't have to pay him as much. So like all that kind of stuff, which it never pays off for them.
Right, and I do understand that, but just as you said, the other side to that is if he don't get hurt, you're overpaying. Now you're probably overpaying for a player.
Exactly, because he's 1 year closer to free agency.
So that's here nor there. But Dallas, God bless you. Probably enough here for you, though. All right. We're going to move this over to the Detroit Lions. And this draft for me for the Detroit Lions was the draft that changed the trajectory for them. Getting Aiden Hutchinson with the number 2 overall pick, defensive end. Then getting Jamison Williams, wide receiver, in the first round, also from Alabama. Josh Pascal, defensive end. Kirby Joseph, safety, in the third round. And yeah. Oh, was I bugging? I thought this was the year that they also drafted the middle linebacker from Iowa too. Sorry, that was not
No,
it.
but they did draft Malcolm Rodriguez, who has been pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah. So what did you think about this draft?
Yeah, I gave them a 1. I thought they knocked this one out the park, and that's even with Jamison Williams at pick 12, not really being a below value pick so far in his career. But like you said, Aiden Hutchinson, he might be the best defender, best defense. He's probably the best defensive lineman in that draft coming out. Kirby Joseph was a All Pro last year. He led the league in interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
I like Malcolm Rodriguez for what he is and for where they selected him in the 6th round. I thought this was, to your point, this was sort of like a foundational draft for them, where they got 2 players who are, Kirby Joseph already an All Pro. Aiden Hutchinson would have been it had he not got hurt last year. Really foundational players for their roster going forward.
Yeah, so Malcolm Rodriguez is he's a role player. He's a very good role player. He plays across the the linebacker positions. I think he's played all 3 linebacker positions.
Yeah, and he's small and he rushes the passer pretty well. Like that's
Yeah,
what he did in
yeah,
college.
yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, and Aiden Hutchinson last year, had he not broken his leg, was probably going to be the defensive player of the year. So
Yeah.
having that guy, you drafted a difference maker with that pick. And I remember even in that pick when Josh Allen, the defensive end for the Jacksonville Jaguars, he was also with, and they took him first. And I was like, maybe
It was Trayvon Walker.
was it Trayvon Walker? My apologies. Trayvon Walker was who it was. And I was remember going back and forth like, well, maybe this is this. I'm You can clearly see who was the better prospect out of that draft. So getting a difference maker and then and I think I don't know if you want to call him a difference maker, but Jameson Williams has definitely solidified his role on this offense and added a whole new dimension to this offense. I don't know if you want to call that a difference maker, but he's somebody you got to deal with.
Not really. I mean, he's fast. He's very fast. He's ridiculously fast, and that's for sure. So his deep speed, definitely changes the angles on passing downs. Number 1, he's a dunce cap. He does dumb things on the field, celebrations, gets penalties, all that kind of stuff. He's an unreliable
What do you
route
mean,
runner.
like when he lifted his leg and peed like a dog? Is that what you're referring
Yeah,
to?
or like humped the ground after a touchdown. Like, it it costs the team yards. That's all I'm gonna say. He's not a very good route runner. He's basically like he's just a deep threat right now. And he's a very good deep threat, but he's really one dimensional at this point. He's not bad. If he was picked at like 27 and not 12, I probably I would have a better opinion of it overall. But yeah, like Kirby Joseph is an All Pro and he was drafted in the 3rd round. That you can't beat that.
Mm-hmm. So and now the only thing that I'll say about the Lions is my enigma right now because I don't know what they're going to be losing because with all this talent, they do have all this talent. They did lose their offensive and defensive coordinator in the same year, and if anything smells like we're gonna take about 5 steps back, it would be that. So I gotta think on how well I feel about Dan Campbell and his ability to bring in guys that don't know how to harness the talent on his team again. And I don't know how I feel about that just yet.
Yeah. No, I think this is a really important year for the franchise. They got upset in the 2nd round last year, in the playoffs. Did not fulfill what they were supposed to be. But it is also a big year for the coach, like you said, because this is going to be like I saw this with the Eagles when they lost their 2 coordinators, and it was kind of all eyes on the head coach. And so, what are you going to do?
Okay. But we'll find out a lot more about that. So we're gonna stay in the NFC North, and we're gonna go with that Green Bay Packers. With their first selection, they selected Quay Walker, inside linebacker from Georgia, and also they did in the first round they selected Devontae Watt, defensive tackle from Georgia. And then in the second round, they got Christian Watson. Third round, they got Sean Ryan, offensive guard. Then in fourth round, they actually got Romeo Dobbs. Um, but yeah, what do you think about this draft?
I gave him a 3. It could have been a 2, but I gave him a 3 because it was a questionable first round pick for Quay Walker in the moment. They declined his 5th-year option, so that tells you a bit about what they think of him now. But even in the moment when they drafted him, I was like, why? He's not really. He probably wasn't going to get them the value that they wanted at that pick. I think Devontae Wyatt has been fine. I think they picked up his 5th-year option. He's been fine. He hasn't been. There was a question during the draft as whether he or Jordan Davis were going to be the better defensive tackles. Neither of them have really performed to the level of their reputations, but Devontae Wyatt has been fine. Christian Watson, when he's been healthy, has been sort of that. Not sort of. He's been that deep threat for them, and he's been pretty successful at it. I thought he was overdrafted coming out of North Dakota State, even in the second round, but I think he's been fine. It just the injuries have kept him back. Romeo Dobbs is great value in the 4th round, and Zach Thomas is their starting guard as well. He's great value in the 4th round as well. So because of their first 2 picks, I was pretty down on and kind of down on in the moment. Christian Watson just being meh, and then getting the value in the 4th round. Yeah, I kind of just netted out as a high 3, low 2.
Okay. So of course, like I said, yeah, you got to knock out the first 2 picks, but if you don't, if you happen to get it right with your 3rd and 4th round picks or later on your draft, it does make it seem better. So getting your wide receiver core in this draft, I think I don't know what you could hope to come away with more than that and out of rookies coming into the NFL. And Romeo Dobbs and Christian Watson. That's what I'm talking about.
I hear that, but they drafted a 1st round wide receiver this year. So
yes,
how is that there? Like how much of Romeo Dobbs and Christian Watson are actually their core? There's going to be somebody left out.
So a rookie who they want to be the number 1 wide receiver. I was literally getting to that point, so I'll just say that point. The Packers always do a great job every year of picking, getting players onto the field. They knock out the draft in terms of checking the boxes, but they struggle with difference makers. Now, so and that's kind of been like their history. I mean, no matter what they had until they had until they signed to Charles Woodson, they couldn't get over the hump. They need to. They're a team that can draft really well, but they need to sign that difference maker. So, why did they do that? Now they did get a wide receiver core, but they feel like this wide receiver can be a difference maker. But at the end of the day, he still is coming in as a rookie. We'll see how great he is, but you don't need him to be great this year, which takes a lot of pressure off of what he has to do regardless. And his upside for the future is going to be amazing. So I still agree with, or I still stand on what I said. That kind of still just shows, okay, we could still get a difference maker. We check the boxes. Now we this guy we think is a difference maker, and that's why we're going to take this pick. I really loved this roster. This is one of the rosters that I think is a competing roster. You know what I mean? For the Eagles, being the Rams, the Packers are the 2 teams that I'm looking at more clearly, saying that's who I would be looking out for. And it's because they're not bad anywhere. Their ability, let's see who ends up a difference maker before we have that conversation about how great they are. But I'm a fan of Jordan Love. I do like this roster. I love the roster. I just want to see who turns out to be more difference makers as opposed to good players.
Yeah, and I think they're still. I know they were last year, and I think they're still this year the youngest roster in the league. So there's a lot of upside with the roster in its entirety. I don't know. I just think that Christian Watson is going to be not on the team after this season because he seems to be the while he does the thing that none of the other receivers do on the team. He's just not. He doesn't play enough, and when he kind of gets the dropsies sometimes. Romeo Dobbs in the 4th round, great value. Christian Watson in the beginning of the 2nd round, I got questions. They also could have drafted Pickens, George Pickens, later in the 2nd round. They could have drafted Pickens with that pick that he took Watson.
Okay, cool. All right, let's get one more in, Let's try this one up. I think we can fit it in now. We're gonna go to the Minnesota Vikings. No, I'm sorry. I passed one. The Los Angeles Rams.
Mhm.
The Los Angeles Rams. You know what? Let me get the Vikings because I think there's less to talk there, and then we'll come back to the Rams. Only because I want to try to squeeze this in, and then we'll get
Okay.
back to it. So let's get to the Vikings. So the Vikings, they drafted in the first round safety Lewisine. In the second round, Andrew Booth Jr., cornerback. Also in the second round, Ed Ingram, offensive guard. And in the third round, they got Brian Asamoah. And
That's Asamoah, but yeah.
is it Asamoah? Okay, I guess we have seen that name before. Um, but yeah, tell me what you think about the Minnesota Vikings roster.
Yeah, this draft I gave a 4 because their top 2 picks are no longer on the team.
Mhm.
Lewisine is like was signed by the Eagles, and Andrew Booth I think plays for the Giants now. And they just let him they let him go. They let him walk or cut him or something. Lewisine got injured, I know, but neither of them are on the team anymore. I haven't really heard about other than Ty Chandler's like sort of third down running back
Right.
play. I haven't really heard about any of these guys play. So I mean, I don't know. Even and also just again the fact that their first 2 picks are not on the team anymore.
Mhm.
That's a pretty poor draft.
Okay. Yeah. So I think so. This is kind of what I mean when I say when you look at the draft, you kind of see how a team is in this situation. So, like for instance, go back to last year when they were like 14-2, and you're like, well, clearly that's going to keep happening. Well, when you look at their draft picks and what they actually did with the team, they did some signings that worked out very well, but it's never sustainable. And that's why I'm looking at them. They're going to be at the bottom of the NFC North. You know what I mean? That's just what's going to happen with them. So that's how. So what I'm saying, this is the sneaky thing because when you look at a team at 14-2, this is how you can kind of look at a roster and say, yeah, they better win it right now because next year,
Yeah, 'cause they don't have young cheap talent to
yes,
fill the void. They have to sign more expensive older talent as free agents.
yes.
And I was looking at the first couple of the first couple of rounds in that draft. If they wanted a safety, they definitely could have drafted Jalen Petrie, who was drafted like 8 picks later, or a corner if they wanted. I guess Andrew Booth was there. That's who they drafted.
Hmm.
There's quite a few who they could have taken after that. So who have been actually have had some success, or at least have been solid on their team players. So they just missed. They swung and missed. That's all you can really say.
It's actually one of my favorite teams that we're about to talk about right now. So, in terms of, let's just say, GMing in the NFL, the top three teams that I've seen GM, or the top three teams GMs I've seen GM, to me, third is the Kansas City Chiefs. And it was kind of a toss up, but I'm going to give the edge to the Eagles, but the Rams were right there. And I say that because I think something gets overlooked when it comes to the Rams. When they to get their ring with Aaron Donald, they mortgaged their future. They sold away all of their first and second round picks for like years. They overpaid in the cap. They did everything to get that ring. Usually, when a team does that, they're at the bottom of their division for the next, what do you say, 4 to 6 years? And they haven't even missed the playoffs. So I can't like that. To me, that goes completely undersold and under talked about in terms of the NFL. So what they've been able to do with third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round picks, but not missing the playoffs, being a real threat to the Super Bowl champion Eagles, and coming back into the season still being the same threat. Listen, starting with these Rams, I'm happy to start here. Their third round pick was Logan Bruss, offensive guard. Fourth round pick,
Jacoby Durant.
Jacoby Durant. They got Kyren Williams in their fifth round pick. Quentin Lake was their sixth round pick. And so, what do you think about this specific draft?
Yeah, so like I mean, I gave it a 2
Mhm.
But there's a bunch of caveats either way, which you described. Like they don't have a pick until the third round. They did that in order to win the Super Bowl, so they got that. They were successful in that endeavor. But it's hard to give really high marks for players that unless they super outperform. I like Kyren Williams. I don't know that he's like a super outperforming, but in the fifth round, you take all that he's given you. Jacoby Durant is like either their second or third corner, and he's still on the team. So getting good production and value out of that fourth round pick.
Yeah, so like their whole draft, so this is all of their signings from last year. There's only been 3 on this roster from last year. There's only been 3. It's their nose tackle, Puna Ford, their center, Coleman Shelton, and Devontae Adams. That's their whole sign. Everybody else they're bringing back. So they went from mortgaging their future to having cheap starters and young cheap starters, and they haven't even missed the playoffs yet. They're putting on a masterclass for how you GM in this NFL. Okay, so might want to keep your eye on them.
Yeah, no, I think the combination of how the sort of teamwork between the head coach and the general manager, it works well. Like the general manager definitely gives the coach the players that he's looking for, and the coach produces on the field. Like you said, they haven't missed the playoffs. So, and they gave the Eagles the hardest game that they had in the whole playoffs, including the Super Bowl. So you can't be mad at that. And these are a draft from 3 years ago where you didn't have it first 2 round picks and you have that many players still on the roster.
We're gonna move on to the deadly New Orleans Saints. No, not so. They didn't have a lot of picks this draft. Might just say them all. So their first round pick, they got Chris Olave, wide receiver. And then they had another first round pick where they got Trevor Penning, offensive tackle. In the second round, they got Alante Taylor, a cornerback. Then in the fifth round, they got DeMarco Jackson, inside linebacker, and Jordan Jackson, defensive tackle. What do you think about the Saints draft?
I gave this one a 4. Chris Olave would be a great pick if there wasn't a lot of question around whether he's going to ever play football again, because of the concussions that he's received. Trevor Penning has been a bust so far. I don't like using the term bust in that way, but he just has not performed well at all. And I don't know, and I haven't heard from or about any of the other players that you mentioned. It's quite possible that every player drafted in this draft will not be on the team by the end of at this time next year. None of these players will be on the roster. The Saints have a history of just mismanaging the draft and mortgaging the future to satisfy current needs. If you're going to take that approach with trying to fill your roster with expensive talent now, you have to nail drafts, and they did the opposite.
First of all, bravo, sir. That's that was I don't have nothing else to say. That was what I was going to say. And when you look at their roster, they did just that. They drafted but poorly. Now I'm anticipating Chris Olave at least being there. I heard rumors of him not playing. I also heard rumors of them trading him, but until further notice, I'm expecting him to be there and be playing. But then they do stuff like re-signing Brandon Cooks at this point in his career. It's like, well, why are you throwing money there? They brought in Justin Reed, safety from the Chiefs, and I'm like, well, you have a lot more problems than safety. Like, what do you think that's holding up? In that combination, they're throwing money away that they didn't even really have. Because if I remember correctly, they're coming into the season like with the worst cap situation period. Anyway, so they're spending money that they really don't have on positions that aren't going to make a difference, and they didn't really draft well. That is why they're in this situation right now.
Yeah,
Which
and
it's funny coming into this year. I was so curious about who was going to take this head coaching job, and I was just hoping it wasn't going to be a black guy because I'm like, you're going to fail with this. This is a setup, okay?
oh,
Don't go there and try to be the head coach of this nonsense. Terrible roster, overpaying for players, cap hell, no real moves, and you think we're going to devise a strategy to do something with this? Yeah, well, I don't have much.
Yeah, yeah. You got to. It's a good thing that coaches' contracts are guaranteed because you're not gonna whatever the contract is that you sign there, you're not gonna last the entirety of the contract. So get your money.
Mm-hmm. So I did say, and I thought about you when I was saying this last week too. So with Derek Carr retiring and stuff, um, I did have to admit,
Mm, mm,
when he came to the Saints, he didn't have a good year at the Saints. He
mm,
did not have one, not one, not
no.
one.
And what are you admitting? Because while he didn't have a good year, you said
He was not. He was unsuccessful as a.
no. When they got him, and I was saying,
Oh, I said he was. I was like, you should be excited about this signing. I absolutely said that.
yeah,
They should be excited about the signing. I said, I thought he was going to do big things in New Orleans. I absolutely did, and
yeah,
I was wrong. You see,
good job.
I don't get credit, and I want everybody watching to have this moment in mind because people think that I can't say that I was wrong, and I promise you, ignore this face, look at that face over there, and let me tell you, that face is a face that does not want to admit I was wrong when I was wrong. Okay.
I like the deflection. Now, that was a very direct deflection.
There's
Not
nothing else I
my
can
face.
say.
Don't look at me. Look at the other guy.
I did a whole soliloquy. I gave you
Also,
a soliloquy.
good job.
Well, thank you.
Good job by you.
I appreciate you, sir. You see, you give that too. All right, we're going over to the New York Football Giants. All right, and with the first pick or the fifth pick, sorry, in the first round, they drafted Kayvon Thibodeau, defensive end, and then they also had another first round pick. They selected Evan Neal, offensive tackle. In the second round, they selected Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver. And then third round, they selected Joshua. I'm not even going to try that last name, but he's an offensive guard. My man Josh, I just want you to know we support you. Did they have anybody else in there that is no real late round picks that I think of. Yeah, the New York Football Giants.
Yeah, I gave it a 1. It could be a 2, but Kayvon Thibodeau, he hasn't been a bust, but he hasn't lived up to the number that he was drafted.
And the funny thing is, he was like great for about like 6 games, and it was just like,
yeah,
I don't know what happened.
You haven't heard from him since. Evan Neal has been a bust. He was drafted to be their starting tackle, and he failed there. They moved him inside, and he didn't play well inside either. So that's not worked. Wan'Dale Robinson, I know he's still on the team. I believe he's still on the team, but it seemed like almost like a waste of a pick, even in the moment, because he's such a small and he's such a specific kind of receiver that you have to use him in specific ways, and he's small, he gets injured and that kind of stuff. So, I'm not. I don't know any of the other players here, so it could be a 2 if Thibodeau turns out to be something in this upcoming season. I could see changing my mind on that and raising the whole draft up a little bit. But as of right now, I don't think I think it was a pretty poor draft.
Okay. Yeah. So the Giants, I think the Giants are kind of full of themselves, and I think they've been full of themselves as an organization.
What?
I'm saying I feel like they don't draft players that are better because of a certain storyline, and they're like, oh, we'll bring in, you know what I mean? Like I remember Wan'Dale Robinson even coming out and like he just wasn't. He really wasn't a first round pick, and they're like, okay, there were people that they could have drafted, and there's always a reason, and it always sounds a little pretentious. You know what I mean? And I feel, that's kind of how I feel about them drafting people lately. They could have done a lot better with this draft, and I think the funny thing is, you always got to showcase that the video of when they were supposed to re-sign Saquon Barkley, and they decide not to. And the man's son is telling him, "You might want to resign Saquon," and he's like, "I don't need Saquon." And then look what's going on, and that's how I feel about their draft too. And I'm like, yeah, I do like their pick from this year though. I do. I think that's the best player in this draft. To be honest with you,
Carter.
I
Gotcha.
do. But outside of that, I don't know. They almost didn't draft Malik Neighbors, and I know they got him. You know what I mean? Cool, they
What do
got
you mean?
Neighbors.
Last year's draft.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at their roster. Period.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? They got Malik Neighbors. They traded for Brian Burns. That'll help. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened to Kayvon Thibodeau, to be honest with you.
He's fine. He's just fine. Like he's not. There's
also
nothing
not
special
starting
about him.
anymore. He's not starting anymore.
Well, he might be starting. I don't know. Carter kind of came in hot asking for Lawrence Taylor's number. People are kind of looking at him like you might not. And then I heard that like he might start the season as like the third defensive end. So the third defensive end.
Like, so what was he supposed to do though? Like, I mean, you asking for it, like the number or not? I
Why
understand.
are you at? It's Lawrence Taylor. You don't ask for Lawrence Taylor's number. Lawrence Taylor was both the Rookie of the Year and the Defensive Player of the Year in the same season. Like,
I get it.
that's
But
I don't think you understand.
all right. So let me use a different scenario. In Dallas, they use 88 all the time, and
but number 88, the best 88 for Dallas is not the greatest wide receiver of all time.
True.
And nowhere near. Like, Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White. That's kind of where the list is. Like, as far as who might be the best defensive player of all time. You just don't ask.
You're right.
Like
You're right. I still was in my mind that it was like, well, maybe you can whatever. All right, cool. He shouldn't have asked for Lawrence Taylor's number. Abdul Carter, how dare you asking for Lawrence Taylor's number? You sit your ass down until you get it right.
It's a clear rookie mistake.
I don't begrudge him. It's okay.
He can definitely get over it. He shouldn't go to jail for it. It's not
nah, throw his ass in jail.
But like also where's his people? Like somebody, he should have an uncle if his dad isn't there, he should have an uncle or somebody to be like, that's not a smart thought. Like you don't do that. That's Lawrence Taylor.
Got an uncle somewhere that should have said something.
Exactly.
All right, cool. All right. Well, let me ask you this. We can do this one of two ways. We can go to the Eagles now, or we can save the Eagles for last. Your call.
Who's before the Eagles?
Well, the Eagles would be next. The Eagles would be next. But we could but the Seahawks, 49ers, Bucks, and Commanders are all there.
Let's save the Eagles for last.
Okay. So the Seattle Seahawks 2022 NFL Draft. First round, 9th pick, Charles Cross, offensive tackle. In the second round, Boye Mafe. Also in the second round, Kenneth Walker III, running back. In the third round, Abraham Lucas, offensive tackle. They also got Kobe Bryant in the fourth round and Tariq Woolen in the fifth round. And Bo Mountain, no. Yeah. So that's their draft. So what do you think about their draft?
Yeah, I gave it a 2. I thought it was a quality draft. Charles Cross, he gets injured a bit, but I think when he's playing, he's that's at least value for that pick. Add value for that pick. Boye Mafe, he's a very specialized pass rusher. He is what he is. But at where they picked him, he's productive enough where I think that's okay. Abraham Lucas he had a really good rookie year and has fallen off since then. So they get dinged a little bit for that. Mm-hmm. But and getting Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant and where they got him, those I think at least Tariq Woolen starts for them. So they both start. Yeah,
Bryant is the starting free safety right now for them.
Okay, then yeah, like that's get drafted. Getting quality starters at those places is above value. So I gave him a 2.
Okay, so I actually loved their draft. Um, Basically the core of their team is pretty much this draft. Um, so they've done a really good draft, really good job drafting. The only problem with them is it's not a problem. I don't think they had the right quarterback. Now, I do love the fact that they did not choose to overpay for Geno Smith. Okay, I know that that means that they don't have the quarterback that they want right now. Having Sam Darnold come in, and I don't think that that's it. But I think if they can package something together, move up in the draft, and get a young quarterback, I think they will have knocked this this whole offseason draft thing out of the park. Um, I like where their roster is. I just never. I like their quarterback position, and I like it now. I don't think it's great, and I think it has a ceiling because of the quarterbacks that they had. The quarterback they had this year in Sam Darnold, and the quarterback they had last year in Geno Smith.
I think I'm a bigger fan of Geno Smith than you are. I thought that the only thing that Seattle did well at the quarterback position this year is basically guarantee that they will be bad enough to draft their next quarterback. And if that was the plan to effectively tank, then bravo, well done. Because I don't think there's any way that Sam Darnold will play at the level of Geno Smith this upcoming season. I realize
The
what.
roster's too good to look at this as a tank. They're gonna win.
Well, then I don't know why they didn't just. I mean, it's not like It's not like Geno Smith signed for that much more money than Sam Darnold got, and Sam Darnold got all the money he got based off of one season in almost a perfect situation for him. So if they actually think that they're getting better at quarterback, I would need to see that first to believe that, because that doesn't make sense to me.
I don't. So I'm not in their room. I'm not in their draft room or anything. I don't think that they're thinking their quarterback position is better. I think that what they're saying is it's maintainable until.
Then they couldn't do that with Geno Smith. Like, maybe now. To be clear, I've also heard that Geno wanted out.
Mm-hmm.
Geno, it was entering the last year of his deal. He was like, "I'm not resigning here. You need to get. You should probably try to get value for me because I'm out. I'm leaving. I don't want to be here anymore." So if that's the case, then you kind of just do what you got to do. Like I get that. But if that didn't happen and they have the roster talent that they have, like, and they're trying to win, then this doesn't do that.
Okay. We'll see what's going on with them. But I'm looking at them. They're going to win. I don't think they don't win 8 games.
Nah, I see them in the like 4 to 7 range, maybe. That's a lot of games. That's a big range. I think they top out at 6 wins.
I see them in the 2 to 10 win range. You know.
Yeah, exactly. I think 6 wins is their ceiling.
Okay.
And also, it's like old Cooper Kupp and Jackson Smith and Jigba, like.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's still a lot of questions on the offensive line. I don't know. I think it's going to be a real bad season for Sam Darnold's going to look real bad.
Fair. So San Francisco 49ers. Are the 49ers done? Hold that thought while I go through these draft picks. In the second round, they did not have a first round draft pick in 2022. In the second round, they got Drake Jackson, outside linebacker. In the third round, they got Tyron Davis Price, running back. Also in the third round, they got Danny Gray. And they got Samuel Womack, who is one of their corners. It's a lot of Tariqs now, you know. I'm just not to just say it like that, but it's a lot of Tariqs now in the NFL. Jalen Rose, he said, it's a lot of Jalen's now. And I'm just saying, I'm not in, interpreting anything. I'm just saying.
Of course, there was the difference being that there weren't any Jalen's before Jalen Rose, and now they're like, but I guess there were no Tariqs before you. So there we go.
I'm saying now it's in TV shows.
Now I see it. I see the vision.
You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm not saying, but you see what I'm saying.
But it's there. It's right there. You didn't say it, but it was right there. Exactly. You missed a big name though.
Who did I miss? Oh, Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
I feel I might have did that on purpose. Go ahead, tell me what you think about this draft. Go ahead.
So I gave this a 2 off the strength of Brock Purdy only. And I gave that a lot of value because that's a 7th round pick that Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft, who today signed his big deal, signed his big quarterback deal. So congratulations to him. Getting him in the 7th round, that's regardless of what you think of him as a talent relative to other quarterbacks in the NFL, getting the production that you've gotten out of the 7th round quarterback is amazing.
Okay.
The rest of this draft, I don't believe anyone else is on the roster now. They released Drake Jackson earlier this offseason. And he was, I think, the last player other than Brock Purdy to be on the roster. So this is one of the worst drafts in this draft. If you did not include Brock Purdy.
Yeah, you can throw this draft away. I'm sorry. Yes, Brock Purdy is here. I'm a skeptic of Brock Purdy, as you know. I'm looking at what he did last year when everything started breaking down, and I think we saw the real him. And I think this is a scenario where the 49ers kind of said we kind of have to.
Can I let me just step in. I think that he did show who the real him is. I think you should look at his stats, and not only the counting stats, but the advanced stats as well. So when you he basically came out as like the 7th or 8th best quarterback of last season.
No, it wasn't that high. But even if you're good, like, listen, there's been good quarterbacks, right, that are on great rosters and they look better than they actually are. I'm not saying I do not think he's bad. I am not paying him top of the league money means, you know what that means for a quarterback. That means you can't get the help that he probably needs. And I think that's going to be the problem. And I think that sets your franchise back. I'm a person, I would rather not pay a good quarterback great money and just say, listen, you're not going to strap my whole franchise like this. I know that sounds crazy to some. I'm more of that guy. And I think Brock Purdy is a good quarterback, and now they're not going to have the ability to surround him because they had to release and get rid of and trade all of their great, most of their great players. It's like a Fred Warner and them, like.
Well,
like, is Christian McCaffrey playing this year? Is Christian McCaffrey playing this year? Like, he might be hurt the whole year. Is Ayuk gonna be back? Like, what's he gonna look like after the surgery? Like, he's gonna, like, Brock Purdy got to pick all of this up, okay? And you gotta thrive. And I'm telling you, it's not gonna happen.
Well, so you've combined last year and this year. So hold on. Last season, Brock Purdy probably had his best season as an individual player. I know the team sucked. The team fell apart at the end. Let's be clear. I'm not like the Brock Purdy fan.
I got you.
I just don't think number one, I think he's a good quarterback. And I don't buy into the like splitting the quarterback from the system approach. Like, this is a package deal. Quarterbacks are successful because the system around them is successful and vice versa. And he has performed well in that system. Call him a system quarterback if you want. I'll even agree to that. He's good. And, we'll have to wait and see what the guarantees really are in his contract. It might not be the top of the league money that the initial numbers indicate that it is.
Mm-hmm.
The guarantees might make it like if the guarantees make it like the 4th or 5th highest paid quarterback in the league, that's fine because in 2 seasons, that's going to be the 25th highest paid, not 25th, but like the 9th or 10th or 11th highest paid quarterback. And it's just going to decline year over year because the cap is going to continue to go up. And they'll get more, and that means that they'll get more percentage of the cap back to be able to spend on other talent around him, which I agree he needs. He's not an elite quarterback. He can't win the games on his own. He needs that talent around him. And next season just might be a throwaway season for all the reasons that you said. Christian McCaffrey might be done. Ayuk is he's going to be coming a year off of an ACL injury. No more Debo. Offensive line is worse than it was last year. Who else is on defense? That just might be a throwaway season anyway. So good to give the quarterback the money that year because you're not spending it in free agency.
One of the top 5 offensive tackles of maybe of all time just is going down. Like,
you're wild to call Trent Williams a top 5 offensive tackle of all time.
Yeah, baby.
It's not, there's no maybe.
Amazing.
That's on the level of Carter asking Aaron Taylor for his jersey. Like that. This is just ridiculous talk.
And I even corrected myself, even as the person that corrected himself and what he was saying. No, it's not.
Ridiculous thought. He's not the best offensive tackle playing right now.
Well, he's old now.
Okay. I mean, he's a great one. He's a great offensive tackle, and he's going to go to the Hall of Fame, no doubt about it. But come on now, top 5 of all time.
Another conversation.
You like those guys who be like, most Def is a top 5 rapper of all time.
All right. See what I'm saying, y'all? You see what I'm saying, right? Y'all see, y'all.
Bars.
All right, relax, yeah.
Nobody can out rap him. Nobody can out rap him though.
All right, so the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they had a draft as in 2022 as well.
Yes, I'm sure they did.
And there, they did not have a first round pick this draft, and they had Logan Hall, defensive end, their second round pick. And also in the second round, Luke. Yep, I'm not going to try to pronounce that name either. He's Gadecki. Okay, thank you, Gadecki. But they also have Rashad White and Cade Otton in this draft. And yeah, what do you think about this draft? Tampa Bay.
I gave it a 3. Outside of, I think Luke Gadecki get some burn. I think Logan Hall is kind of like a rotational. He's a lineman, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's a rotational lineman.
He's defensive end.
Yeah. And I think Rashad White, he's been productive for them. So
he's one of the upper echelon running backs.
Yeah, exactly. And the rest of it is whatever. They didn't have a first round pick, so I understand that, but this is not a if your best pick is A, not elite, and B, not at a premium position, I don't have much for you. It wasn't terrible, but a 3.
All right. So because we got to wrap this up in about 10 minutes, I'm going to just leave that there. I don't have much to say about Tampa Bay anyway. And we're just going to continue to move along to Washington because we got to get Washington and Philly. So, So we're just going to jump right into Washington. With their first round pick, they had Jahan Dotson. With their second round pick, Ferdarian Mathis, defensive tackle. Their third round pick was Brian Thomas Jr. Fourth round pick, Percy Butler. Sam Howell was the quarterback that they drafted. And what do you think about this draft from the Washington Commanders?
I gave it a 4. I don't think anyone is from this draft is still on the team. Jahan Dotson, I know, is in Philly. I think Brian Robinson is in maybe New England. Sam Howell has been traded a bunch of times. Like, I don't think.
No, Brian Robinson still on the team. Brian Robinson's still on the team.
Okay. Well, there you go. I didn't even know it's on the team. Yeah, I don't think there's much in this draft at all for them.
Now, this is a case where you could kind of see where just one draft later, you could be changing the outlook of your roster and your culture just like that. Now, if you get smart, you could do it just like that. With that said, this is crap. Brian Robinson Jr., though, he is a very good running back, and I'm not mad at that. And but yeah, it's just they're not the Commanders that we know today. They didn't get it right yet.
Right. Yeah. Basically the Commanders are an example of what happens when you draft an elite quarterback. Like they're a force multiplier.
Also, and just in terms of me thinking about the draft and stuff like that, this is why I don't like when you got a whole bunch of holes in your roster, why first round pick being a wide receiver is a problem for me. It's just way too many things that you need to act like this wide receiver doesn't need a good offensive line, good quarterback, and at times play action from a good running back to shine. You know what I mean? I don't like moves like that, so that's just a me thing.
Maybe, but I mean, I'm not mad at Atlanta drafting Drake London at 9, and they had holes. So
yeah, but I still think that shows why they're in the situation and they're underachieving too. I'm not saying it was the worst pick ever, but what I am saying is you have other things you need to focus on. And you acting like a wide receiver is going to change the outlook of your franchise, I think is incorrect.
yeah, I mean, outside of quarterback, I don't think any position is going to change the outcome for your franchise in a
See, I
significant way.
disagree with that. I think offense. I think left tackle will. I think defensive end will. I think cornerback will.
Look, you selected all the premium positions. I understand. I'm just saying they're not quarterback. They're important. They're like who's the last offensive tackle that changed the course of a team their rookie year, like Daniels did for Washington last year.
The person that jumps into my head was like Tyron Smith.
Yeah, but they were still like that's a team that didn't go to the playoffs his rookie year.
Drafting rookie year. I'll have to look into that. I will have to look into that.
And that's not to say that like someone like Tyron Smith is not great. Like I'm just saying like the impact that a tackle can have, as great as it is not at the level of quarterback.
Got you. All right. All right. Well, let's end this up with your Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles. Now you go. Now we're going
fly, Eagles fly
on the road to victory. I thought you was hitting them. I thought you was hitting them. I thought you was hitting them in the head with it.
I stop at fly, Eagles fly. I let the chorus jump in on the rest of it.
Okay. So with their first pick, defensive tackle is also a position that I think can change the outlook of your roster too. Jordan Davis, defensive tackle, first round pick. Second round pick, Cameron Jurgens, center. Third round pick, Nakobe Dean, inside linebacker. Sixth round pick, Kyren Johnson, inside linebacker. And then another sixth round pick, Grant. I can't say that last name. Calcaterra, tight end. How did the Eagles do in this draft?
I gave him a 2. It could have been a 3. I gave him a 2 off the strength of Cam Jurgens, who's their center and replaced the Hall of Famer. Has done so well. He was a Pro Bowler last year. Also, Grant Calcaterra is their second tight end. Getting him in the 6th round was of value, not simply because he's the second tight end, but because Dallas, I gotta call him Dallas Clark, Dallas Goddard, gets injured so much that Grant Calcaterra gets a significant amount of starts has had a significant amount of starts the last couple of years. Jordan Davis, they traded up for Jordan Davis actually. And he just hasn't had the impact that his athleticism demonstrated, or what you thought he would have had coming out of Georgia the previous year. He's still he's 6'6", 340, and I'm pretty sure he's bigger than 340. He is a good first down and second down run stuffing player, but he was supposed to be more, and he hasn't been more. So that's a knock for them. Nakobe Dean finally came through last year as a starting linebacker until he tore his knee up. He's probably not coming back this upcoming season until somewhere midway through the season, which sucks for him. But he was drafted in I know there was a lot of hype around him coming into the league. He was supposed to be a first round pick. He slid all the way to the 3rd round. That was supposed to be a steal. I think he was a 3rd round pick and has played at a 3rd round level. So I don't think that was a steal. I give it a 2, basically because Cam Jurgens is really good and Calcaterra has stepped in admirably.
Okay, so a role player. So Jordan Davis, as of right now, is a role player. He is a rotational defensive tackle.
He starts though, but he's not.
I know what you're saying. With Cameron Jurgens, he replaced a Hall of Famer and didn't miss a beat. There's not much more you could hope for a rookie coming in. And Nakobe Dean, yes, he did. He was definitely better. I felt like that was a little. I'm not saying it was lucky, but he didn't look good for a long time. Then he was just like boom, like oh, we don't need all of these other players. So that was cool too. But I do love how the Eagles just replace Hall of Famers with rookies, and it's like what are we saying about these Hall of Famers? Because these rookies are coming in and doing the exact same thing. But that is why I give them the nod as supreme GMing that we can see in NFL. Um,
Look, Howie Roseman, the GM, has definitely been on a hot streak in the last few drafts and off seasons in terms of free agency signings and that kind of stuff as well.
mhm.
Just I mean I'm an Eagles fan, but I have to remind Eagles fans that it wasn't always so sweet with Howie
Yes.
Roseman.
I remember when y'all wanted Howie out, but
Yeah. And so it's been great these last, I'd say like 3 or 4 drafts. He gets the benefit of the doubt basically for anything going with any questionable pick. I'm like, well, I'll give Howie the benefit of the doubt for this one. It just wasn't always this way.
got you. Okay, well that was the NFC teams right there. We got about a minute left before we're gonna wrap this up, before we have to be off of this. So I'm gonna wrap this up real quick, and I'm sure I'm gonna hear you, but I think you like doing this a lot more than you thought you was gonna do.
No, I understand. I understand it a little bit more. I see what we're doing now.
Either way, you can catch us on catch the full episodes on Spotify and YouTube. Catch the reels on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We all over the place. Mooch, look what you did. You just heated this up before you left. And I still got to tell you, cause you don't know football, I'm gonna see you in a week or two. We're gonna get the AFC teams and we're gonna wrap this thing up.
For sure.
All right, man. Later now.
Love you, man.